I'm Anna Lee Williams, and I'm running for Congress in New Jersey 11 because you deserve a fair deal from your government. So, I'm a community organizer. I have been organizing for the last 10 years. Really my background is has been working with nonprofits like Make the Road New Jersey, like Vietnamese Boat People, our interfaith food pantry of Morris County. I live in Morristown, and truly it's very important to me that we have a government that represents all of us. The Fair Deal platform is very simple, and I think that's some of the questions that Larry and I are going to get into. But it's the premise that when you work hard, you show up for your community, and you pay your taxes, then you deserve a government that shows up for you. And right now, I know everything feels pretty awful, and right now we're not getting a government that shows up for us. So that's why I'm running, because I want to make sure that we have representatives that are going to pass laws that move us into the future instead of, into World War II.
Two again? We can't do two again.
World War III, but
Oh,
you
that
know
one's
how
good.
it feels these
That one's
days.
good too. Yeah, let's avoid all of them. And
Really, yeah.
let's avoid leadership who is charging towards that, please.
Yeah.
So, Anna, thank you for that. And let me first ask you perhaps the most divisive question in New Jersey politics: Taylor ham or pork roll, and defend your answer.
Oh gosh. Okay, big question. If I'm being honest with you, that's not like necessarily my bagel order. I think if I have to choose on the spot, I'll say Taylor ham. But if I'm at the bagel shop, I'm getting a sausage, egg, and cheese with salt, pepper, ketchup.
Nice. What kind of bagel, though?
Everything bagel.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We deserve everything.
And like a lightly toasted, just to add that in.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. That's a good one. I'm going to keep on the food theme, and we will get
Okay.
to. We're starting with some fun ones, but we will get to some horrifically serious topics. So
Yeah.
absolutely, don't be fooled into thinking it's all pork roll or Taylor ham. All right, the next one. This is an NJ11 specific question. What is the best hidden gem food spot that most people don't know about, and what should we order when we go?
Okay, I think it's actually Virilli's in Morristown. So they specialize in pizzas, but they're actually a Greek bakery. And I'm a huge fan of their Greek salad with chicken skewers. It's actually keeping me fed through this election. So highly call that out. And then they also won an award for their spud nuts, which are like potato-based donuts. So highly recommend trying those and get the original.
Original, okay. And I've had their cheesesteak, and it's my favorite one around here. Really,
Yeah, it's good stuff.
it still
And the
counts.
owner and the family, they're just good people. So we love to support small businesses.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Um, okay, so this next one is a hard one. Maybe you've been asked it before. Uh, you could have entered public service in a lot of different ways, a lot of different roles. Why is now the moment? Why Congress as the first elected position you're pursuing?
Yeah, so I think this is about the problems that we face, right? Even the local ones are systemic. So, your local council person can't fix grocery store prices or youth unemployment or kind of the crazy cost of healthcare that we're seeing. And I think we are at an inflection point. So we have to decide what the vision for our future actually looks like. I think that the Republican vision for our future is full on authoritarian. So, I mean, just noting, right? It's January 5th. We are 5 days into 2026, and we are at war with Venezuela, and Trump has threatened war with 6 other countries. And at the same time, we are giving Russia and China clear indications that they can go and be imperialistic too. And I think that doesn't even cover kind of the other blatant ways that this administration is committing war crimes and ignoring the rule of law. At the same time, you've got corporate Democrats, and I think their vision is very pro corporation. They want to fix small things around the edges and really try to return to a pre-Trump era. And frankly, they have been toothless in stopping anything. So I don't want either of those. And the thousands of people that I've spoken to don't either. I think we deserve better from our government, and we deserve a future where we have major systemic issues actually addressed. And ideally, we have a future where opportunity is abundant and life for the normal everyday person is good. So I think what we've been needing is bold leadership, a grassroots message, and a clear vision for change.
Makes a lot of sense. Yes, we do need that. Um, this one, I don't like asking this one, but knowing that there's 12 candidates, so 11 are not going to make it through. If you don't
That's
win
true.
if you don't win the primary, will you support the Democratic nominee in April? I'm going to ask that as a yes or no, but also within that, of course, does it depend on which Democrat wins? Now that you've gotten to know some of your counterparts, are there some that you would really hesitate before you commit to voting for, or have you been wowed by the competition?
Good question. I think for the primary for this primary upcoming in February, I would support the nominee. And I want to call out that I'm running because I truly believe we're not getting a fair deal. So if our campaign wins, which I hope we do, I will be pushing really hard for the fair deal that we deserve. And if we don't win, then I hope whoever's in that seat takes our policies and runs with them. And I will be wildly annoying if they don't. So
I like it. I like it. Me too. I'll be wildly annoying with you.
good stuff.
Um, okay, I'll say if this is a cousin of that question, but let's say another Democrat wins the general election in April. Would you consider running again and doing a primary against that person in the midterm, or is this a one shot moment and you would perhaps switch to something else if the NJ11 seat doesn't work?
I mean, the truth is that I don't know. It really depends on who wins and how this election goes. I'm happy to support any candidate that pushes for the things that are in our Fair Deal platform. So what I'm fighting for is universal health care, making housing affordable and accessible, debt-free education, which includes pre-K through college, real AI regulation, and some meaningful action on climate change. And I know that those things take a lot of time, right? So I'm happy to help however I can, and I'm an organizer, and truly I want to see these things get done. But what I won't accept is, and I don't think any of us should accept this, is a candidate that will sit there and not actually push for change, because people want change and we deserve change.
You're right. Right about that. And that actually segues nicely into my next question. When I was talking about all of those candidates who have asked for your votes but not taken positions, Anna is not one of them. Anna has put out her Fair Deal platform on her website. I want to say from day one, maybe it was day two. You tell me. But
No, the Fair Deal was first. We had the Fair Deal first before we had my bio. So
nice, nice. Before the donate button, I feel like that's a thing. It's donate to me first, and then perhaps I'll tell you what policies I stand for later. Vote for me. Send in your mail-in ballot for me now, and then I'll tell you what I stand for a little bit later on.
yeah, I'm proud to say that we're doing the opposite. So
I like it. So four people, and you mentioned a couple of pieces from the Fair Deal already, but from your fair Deal, what is the heart of it? What makes that different from other campaign promises?
yeah, okay. So very simple premise. When you work hard, you pay your taxes, and you show up for your community, then your government should show up for you. right? Super basic. You deserve a fair deal from your leaders, from your government, from your representatives. And I think this is about delivering on the promise of the American dream, right? It's the basic idea that we deserve a government that's going to work to pass laws that actually help all of us. And truly, I think that's common sense, right? That's what a democracy is supposed to be. And I'm not just pushing policies. I'm also the only candidate that's talking about a vision for our future. So this isn't about, short-term gain. It is a bold, authentic vision for how we move forward.
Love it. And then I'm going to ask you one that I hate asking. This is a classic question whenever we get proposals for progressive policies that actually help people, but then magically does not get asked when we have cruel policies that hurt people. But how are you going to pay for the fair deal? Because I like all the ideas I saw in it. Do you have a method of paying for these?
Yeah. So I do want to say, I think this is a silly question. It's valid, but silly because we already pay for this. The better question is, what are we spending our money on instead? And it's all about priorities. So in 2025, we spent 900 billion on the military, and most of that went to inflated contracts, right? We also spend billions on corporate subsidies. So just as an example, to provide SNAP benefits, that costs the average voter just $40 a year. At the same time, corporate subsidies cost the average voter just under $1,000 per year, which is 25 times SNAP benefits. So it actually costs us less to help normal people. And then we just spent $5 trillion on tax cuts to the ultra wealthy. And those cuts are being paid for by all of us while our government services are actively being dismantled. So again, we're literally paying more to get less back. And I think those billionaire tax cuts alone would fund the fair deal policies that we're talking about. I think it's important to call back to history, right? We used to have a 90% incremental tax rate for the highest tax bracket back when Eisenhower was president. And today, billionaires pay an effective tax rate of 8% because of loopholes. And Larry, you and I, and probably everyone on this call pays far more than that. So all to say, the question is, or the question isn't how do we pay for it? We already pay for it. The question is really, what do we want to spend our money on? Because personally, I would rather see us spend it on universal healthcare, investments in housing and transportation, and building up our green infrastructure. All of that instead of overpriced bombs and military contracts and tax cuts for billionaires and corporations.
Can you have both? Can you have the world's biggest, strongest military, smartest military by several fold, but not by as many times as we have it right now, and then get real services?
I mean, I think so. I think it's possible, right? And the other piece of this is, if we support our military and we support our troops, then we wouldn't be doing, reckless actions like attacking other countries or stealing other countries' leaders, right? The world is less safe. Americans are less safe when we engage in acts like this.
That is absolutely true. I'm going to skip ahead a question to ask about that on Venezuela. So we've watched a president claim the power to help push out a world leader abroad, while weeks earlier he pardoned another world leader who was extradited, convicted through the actual legal process of drug trafficking. What
Right.
should Congress do when a president uses foreign policy this way? And how would you assert real oversight over war powers and international interventions as a member of Congress?
Yeah, so I just want to acknowledge we're in a really scary moment as a country, right? I mean, if you, I said it to my mom the other day, but she hadn't seen the news yet, and I said, we just invaded Venezuela and kidnapped the president and his wife, and she did a double take, right? I think we are all like, we are all experiencing political whiplash constantly as Americans. What we need right now is for Congress to have teeth, honestly, and stop thinking about how they hold on to their seats for the short term. So we have a situation where international laws and standards have been clearly broken, and this warrants impeachment proceedings, like point blank. I think the act of kidnapping another country's president also puts Americans in danger. And I do want to highlight, like, Maduro is a bad person, right? He's a bad leader. All of those things are true, but we've shown our allies, kind of abroad, that they can't trust us. We're also showing to the world that we are an unstable country, and we're giving permission to Russia and China to follow our example, basically, and invade and take over other countries as they please. So only Congress has the power to declare war, right? That's in the Constitution. But they also need to have a far more involved role, and we need to modernize our laws. The current war power laws were written half a century ago, and they're antiquated, right? War has changed since then. And what we need to do is pass and create modern laws that keep Americans safe and guarantee that our foreign policy can't be abused for personal profit.
Yes, please.
And I mean, these are all my thoughts. These are really big, hard questions, right? I mean, it's like I said, I think we're all going through political whiplash of what do we do right now, because it's insane.
And I mean, are we going to see a number of Republicans have the guts to defect like they did on the files? Or are we going to see continued cowardice here and just abdication of that power? Because if they do abdicate that power, then we're looking at, it's going to be difficult to stop this till next January. Is that fair?
Yeah, and the other thing I want to call out is that I don't think that the Trump administration invaded Venezuela and stole Maduro because of the kindness of Trump's heart, right? I don't think it's about democracy. I don't think it's about the Venezuelan people. It's none of those things. Today I was reading the news, and today is this date, January 5th, is supposed to be the day that the Department of Justice responds to the law about kind of revealing and showing all of the Epstein files, and they are supposed to provide a written response as to why everything was redacted and why they didn't release the full files. And so what that says to me is, this is like a very clear distraction, because we didn't see that hit the news because we're worried about going to, war with Venezuela and 6 other countries.
Yep. Effective distraction, and worth getting distracted for, but also have to find a way to do that without letting them get away with it, with the original offenses. Speaking of so many offenses, let's talk crypto, not the tech, but the power. So we've now seen the president launch a meme coin on Inauguration Day, and promoted by companies and with companies profiting that are members of the president's family, coin holders, domestic and foreign, getting unusual access to the administration. That feels wrong, right? And I think everybody would recognize how wrong that is for anyone else. And so how would you crack down on that kind of political financial abuse, hold the enablers accountable, and then ideally do that without destroying legitimate crypto innovation, right? Can you just thread yet another needle, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so I want to first say that this is not a legitimate crypto innovation, right? This is corruption. Like, let's just call it what it is. It's corruption. And this is the same scheme as kind of that old overpriced real estate corruption deals. Like, we've seen this happen before, but now it is through a fully unregulated digital model. This allows foreign interests to basically buy access to our government, which is bad. Like you said, it feels bad, it is bad. And the Trump family and those that are closely connected have used this to sell favors and access while they're wildly self-enriching. So, all wrong. The second thing I want to call out, though, is that meme coins in particular are not providing any sort of real innovation. They're mostly white label products that are built on top of existing platforms or tokens. The real innovation here, I guess, if you can call it that, is that Trump found a way to allow entities to buy influence right in front of our noses. So we need to treat this as exactly what it is, which is corruption and racketeering, and we need to hold members of this administration accountable. So the problem here is that our Congress fundamentally doesn't understand this type of technology or asset. They don't know how to regulate crypto because they don't know how it works or what it is. And I think that calls for young tech literate representatives who know how to regulate and approach this kind of stuff, whether it's crypto or AI or addressing modern work regulations. I think this is a moment where it's really a generational shift and kind of an age thing.
Makes a lot of sense. Let me go. Let me go over to some of the other hottest. It's national and local. It used to be that there was a little bit of separation there, that there were national issues and there were local issues, and then all of a sudden the national issues start to impact locally. So let's start with uh, the death of John or Gene John Wilson Brutus at Delaney Hall um, over in Newark. What's the right path forward here? Can we reform that facility? Do we close that facility entirely, or do we defund ICE operations entirely? And those are obviously three tiers of response to to what we're seeing on the streets and what we see there.
Yeah, for sure. So I just want to first acknowledge how awful this is. Like as a story of humanity, I just feel so sorry to Mr. Brutus and his family and his loved ones. Like this is terrible. There's a lot to the story that still hasn't been answered, and it requires more investigation. To be honest, right? Mr. Brutus, died from a medical emergency. He was 41 years old, and he didn't show any signs of distress during intake. And he also didn't have a history of heart issues, right? So you can clearly see that there's abuse that happened. And with that in mind, I think we need to completely defund and demilitarize ICE. Um, Instead of fixing our immigration system with actual legislation, last year, 2025, we made ICE the highest funded federal law enforcement agency in the country. So now we have unmarked, masked agents kidnapping people off the street. And they are deporting people to concentration camps in other countries. We are clearly abusing and mistreating people. And we've basically created an unaccountable secret police. And that's terrifying. And I just want to say, like, if that's not a clear red flag for fascism, I don't know what is, right? So I think, again, this goes back to taking a moment and saying, this is about priorities, right? Hurting immigrant communities and taking away people's due process doesn't help us in any way. It does nothing to fix our economy or make food prices cheaper or lower the cost of living. And we are responding to a civil offense with a militarized force, and it's wrong. So I support a complete redesign and overhaul of our immigration system, right? I support a clear path to citizenship, and I want to see Congress act to finally pass comprehensive immigration reform and a bill that treats people with respect and dignity.
Yes, please. And the disconnect, because you said, how is it not a red flag for anyone? And I think the disconnect is that for some people, they have convinced people that certain groups don't count. If you were born somewhere else, you don't count. If you pray a certain way, you don't count. And they don't have any sympathy for terrible, cruel, inhumane things happening as long as you fit into some box, as opposed to just accepting that we all count.
Yeah, exactly. And the honest truth is that this affects all of us, right? Whether you are a citizen or not, or you're a green card holder or you're not. When we are in a moment that you have masked agents who don't identify themselves and they don't, you know, they're not asking you to identify yourself. You're not even getting the due process that you deserve. Then we're in a situation where none of us are safe. And it's very important that we just value things like due process, and we value things like respecting people with dignity, and just it's like the bare minimum, and it's really hard.
Agree. So, on a similar topic and also local, uh, we're now getting reports about an immigrant warehousing facility coming as close to home as Roxbury, which is just over in NJ 7th, but it's right here in Morris County with us. What will you do immediately? I guess, what will you do as a citizen, as a congressperson, and what do you recommend that residents be doing? Is it protesting? Is it showing up at certain things? What can we do?
Yeah. So I think this is really where the power of organizing locally matters a lot. In Roxbury, I think it's important to be working with the mayor, kind of your local council people, and to be very vocal. Right? We don't want an ICE warehouse. That's not appropriate in New Jersey. Right? I think we have to be making noise. We have to be very clear that we don't want this. And I want to call out that every seat in the House of Representatives is up for reelection next year, and that includes in NJ7. So we need to organize and make sure that the person we elect is against this type of treatment and behavior and will actually stand up for immigrants. And then when that candidate wins their primary in June, we have to continue protesting and keep the pressure on, and then make sure we go vote for that candidate in November. So I think all of those things. I also want to call out, and I said this, but elections matter more than ever right now. The second thing we have to do is we need to make it clear in New Jersey that ICE can't buy, build, or rent facilities here. So that means passing a statewide Immigrant Trust Act. We've already started passing it across NJ11 within each municipality, but we need to put the pressure on our state legislature and our governor, our new governor-elect, to make sure that, Mikey Sherrill passes that and signs it. So yeah, I mean, it's all those things. It's organizing at the local level. It is showing up to make sure we vote, and it is pressuring our own state government to make sure that they pass the Immigrant Trust Act.
Yes, please. So, since we're talking about all these deep topics, let's go over to Turning Point USA,
Yeah.
where Turning Point and Linda McMahon recently came to Colts Neck promoting patriotic education. Uh, do you feel like Democrats need an answer to groups like TPUSA, or is the answer showing that loving America means we're not forced to be patriotic? What's the answer there? I don't want that kind of indoctrination in our affecting my kids.
Yeah, and that's my first thought, is that we have to call it what it is, right? It's indoctrination. I think there's a clear difference between patriotism and love of country and nationalism, which is what these groups are pushing. So I think it's three things that we have to do. We need to, one, improve our digital literacy as a country. I mean, I can say it too. I have these conversations with my parents, but it's become so hard for people to know what's real and true because everything that you watch seems to push some kind of agenda. And then the second part is that we are bombarded with information and we just have to be more critical of it. So there's the digital literacy side of this. The second piece is that we need to regulate tech and media companies, right? The culture of content that we have today promotes and monetizes extremism, and not just extremism, but all of the isms, right? It's misogyny, racism, and it primes impressionable people, particularly children, young adults, and retirees, to become nationalists. And then I think we also need to promote a real vision for change, right? Turning Point doesn't work because the arguments make sense. It works because people are angry and isolated, and you have a group like Turning Point saying, we have an answer and we have a community for you. And I think we can't sit here and say, well, they're a problem without addressing why is their content so appealing. So we have to look within our society. Like, we haven't answered a lot of questions, and we're ignoring the very real problems that people have been bringing up for the past 20 plus years. So that includes job security, economic pressures, and social pressures. So we have to come up with that part of it. And then I think we need to change the message on the left of what we're pitching, right? Because people want real change, not incremental little adjustments at the edges. They want this because they're just not getting a fair deal. So I guess all of that to say, in summary, we need to improve digital literacy, regulate tech and media companies, and promote a real alternative vision that addresses the pain that people are feeling.
Makes a lot of sense. Maybe Department of Education doesn't need to be run by a wrestling executive.
There you go. That's part of it too. There's just so many, we're in a crazy timeline. It's a joke. Yeah. So that's the other part of it. If you're not crying, you have to laugh a little.
Agree. All right. Let me go over to maybe a sensitive one. So we saw Joe Hathaway after the Hanukkah tragedy in Bondi Beach, Australia. We saw Joe Hathaway come out and challenge his 12 Democratic opponents to sign a pledge that affirms their support for our Jewish neighbors in NJ 11th, but then also explicit support for Israel and a commitment to stand against anti-Semitism in all forms. Do you agree with his statement or the sentiment behind his pledge to support our Jewish neighbors? And beyond the Jewish community, who certainly I support all of our communities. What other groups in NJ 11th are hurting right now and deserve explicit reassurance that their elected officials stand with them?
Good question. Really big question. I think just to add a little more context here, Joe's statement came out as a response to the awful anti-Semitic attack in Australia that was on the Jewish community while they were celebrating Hanukkah. So where I agree with Joe, we need to condemn hate crimes and anti-Semitism, full stop, right? And I want to call out that a pledge like this is short-term thinking, right? I think it's a little odd and opportunistic in a way that doesn't really address what we can do to reduce and eliminate anti-Semitism in the long term. I think, making a pledge and asking candidates to pledge to Israel, it just turns up the temperature, right? And it contributes to kind of an additional divisiveness that we're seeing. And what we really need in this moment is to push for long-term peace. So I want to make it very clear, anti-Semitism is a problem and it needs to be addressed. Again, full stop. But I can't think of one example where we've successfully addressed hate crimes by being more aggressive or posturing or beating our chest, right? We need to make real progress by connecting communities and addressing sources of hate and anti-Semitism at their core. What that actually means, and we were talking about it earlier, but we need to regulate tech and media companies that have allowed hate to spread on their platforms. And we used to have this, but we've weakened it over the past 10 years. It also means prosecuting people who are committing human rights violations and atrocities in our very own government, right? I'm thinking about Stephen Miller. I'm thinking about ICE. I'm thinking about how we are unfortunately enabling and building a concentration camp in El Salvador. It's all very 1930s coded, right? And then we also need to help and support our allies around the world, but also make sure that we hold them to a high standard, right? In terms of how they treat humans and people in general. So now kind of the tough one. From a practical standpoint, anti-Semitism is at its lowest points when Israel is at peace with its neighbors. And that's not a statement on whether the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East are okay or justified or even why they happened. It's also not a statement on the actions or the behavior of the Israeli government, but it's a real practical understanding of when anti-Semitism for the Jewish diaspora is the least prevalent, both at home and around the world. So I think the role of Congress should be promoting peace, holding leaders accountable for not pursuing peace, and ultimately seeing positive relationships in the Middle East. And we've seen this before, right? I can point to the Israel-Egypt relationship or the Israel-Jordan relationship. All that to say, we need cooler heads to promote a future of peace and understanding, and ultimately a peace that benefits everyone. So do I agree with Joe that anti-Semitism is a problem? Yes, absolutely. Do I think his politicization and aggression helps reduce anti-Semitism? Not really, right? I think to address anti-Semitism long-term, we need people that are willing to put in the work to build community locally. We need to regulate platforms that promote extremism. And then we need to use the United States soft power to promote a more peaceful world. So that's all to say. And then Larry, I think you had a second question on top of this one.
It was what other groups in NJ11 are hurting right now and in the country are hurting right now and could also use explicit reassurance that their elected officials stand with them.
Yeah, I think pretty much every community is hurting, right? I just want to acknowledge that, we're facing a moment where we're facing a moment where, we're worried about the future of the United States, and people are being laid off from their jobs because of AI, right? They're worried about their physical safety and emotional safety, right? We've seen attacks towards the LGBTQ community. We've seen attacks towards women. I mean, there's a lot going on. Islamophobia is also at an all-time high. So I think we just, again, this larger message about we have to have cooler heads to prevail and ultimately be promoting kind of peace on a larger level. And I know that it sounds lofty to say like we need peace, but that's ultimately how we work towards these things, is we have to believe in that vision to begin with.
Yes, please. One other thing I saw on your social media just after New Year's Eve, you mentioned that the vibe felt off. And I don't know if was that just if you're a Democrat? Was that just if you're empathetic person? But what is it? What was it about this New Year's? I also saw it was a little bit less lively than some previous New Year's, a little less psyched up. I mean, were we going to war as the ball is dropping? I mean, is that what's got us down, or what's your read on why New Year's Eve felt so off, and what should we do about it going into 26 here?
Yeah, New Year's was super weird. We spent New Year's at a friend's, and it was actually really nice and great to spend time with friends. But it was also kind of surreal. So I thought the night started normal, but and I know that I'm running for office. I know that I'm kind of like a political candidate, all those things. But I also don't bring up politics at parties because I recognize there's a time and place for some of those conversations. But every conversation I was in was about how bad things were, and not just talking about the president, but talking about the state of the world. So I was in one conversation where, some friends and people I didn't know were talking about their jobs and companies doing layoffs, and they were blaming it on AI. And then another person said, oh, my company didn't do layoffs, but instead of a 3% raise, they're actually just going to give us a 1% raise, and we're just supposed to be happy with that. And it was just like things like that. And then we put on the news to watch, not the news, we put on the ball drop to watch New Year's Eve happen. And I noticed Times Square was pretty much half empty, and it was mostly just tourists, which is fine. But I also remember in previous years that that it was like super crowded, so that was like not a great sign. And then the music leading up to the ball drop was all like 2008 recession pop, and also depressing songs. So everybody at the party, again, regardless of like political background, was saying, "Oh, we should change the channel. Like this is pretty depressing."
Was
So
it
we changed the channel. Oh, what'd you say, Larry?
was it happening at the same time as Mamdani getting sworn in? Because I think maybe that's where all the fun crew went over to the other event.
That's true. That's a good point. No, but his swearing in was
Wrong
it
day,
seems
right?
like it was more private.
Yep. No, at least some famous people were there.
Um, well, but that actually makes more sense. In any case, it just felt really off. And then we changed the channel to watch some fireworks, and it was like the fireworks around the world. But then we noticed that the fireworks are AI generated. And then the last bit was after the fireworks, we go back to the ball drop, and we start counting down for the ball drop, and it's like 60, 59, 58, and then it cuts to a commercial for like 30 seconds. So we're counting down, and then it cuts to a commercial, which was like wild.
It left the
uh,
countdown in the corner, but then showed a commercial at the same time.
yeah, so we're just like, what's going on? So I know that that's small and silly, but kind of everyone at the party, before the party, after, and even just talking to folks in general, thought 2025 was a bad year. So, I think everyone's overwhelmed with the news. Everyone's upset with Congress for not doing anything. And everyone thinks everyone thinks Trump is insane. And that's even my conservative relatives, even though, some originally supported what was happening. So I think it's very clear that we're in kind of a silent recession. If you look at kind of the long-term unemployment rate, it passed 25%. We've got young and youth adult unemployment is pretty crazy. And then we're also seeing companies laying people off, which is never a great sign. So all that to say, into 2026 and what people want, I think it's very clear that people want change, and what we've had and what we had before wasn't working. Obviously, what we have right now definitely isn't working. So we need to listen and provide answers for real problems, right? How do we promote growth when the economy is run by like six corporations, right? How do we protect people from the AI hype layoffs? And how do we make things less angry and exhausting?
Great ideas. Great ideas. But besides all those things that are wrong, we're fine, right? Um,
Yeah, otherwise we couldn't be better. So
um, all right, I'll ask you one last one. If we get a crazy, challenging question from the viewers, then I'll uh, ask you to boldly respond to that one as well. But so far, I
yeah.
don't think any have come in that will challenge you. Um, the last one I'll ask you officially is there one issue that you care about far more passionately than people realize, something maybe the other candidates agree with you on, but they don't have the same fire, they don't care about it the same way you do?
Yeah. So I care a lot about AI and how we're going to move forward as a society. Um, I don't think it's no surprise to anyone that Congress is too old, right, to pass meaningful legislation around technology. And we're seeing this now, right? AI is the cause of many company layoffs. We're seeing it as the cause of rising electricity bills, and it's contributing to energy and pollution issues. So this is like the internet for our generation. And, 20 years ago, Congress was too old and slow to regulate it back then. So we need to make sure that we address people's data and privacy, right? They need to have ownership of their work. And we also need to make sure that we don't allow algorithms or robots to decide if and when we get hired or fired from a job, or if we can receive medical care, right? I think that's been a big issue too. So we have to deal with this, and I think the majority of Congress isn't young enough to understand how serious it is.
Must agree. Must agree. We got a question in the chat around AI data centers specifically. Um, Eat like an Arab, did you have a specific one about data centers within that, or just data centers, good or bad?
I can
Nunya.
just say, I think, oh, go ahead, Larry.
No, I was going to just agree with Nunya here. Layoffs should be illegal without uh, substantial hit to profits. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so AI data centers and how we manage them, I think, again, this is probably going to be a working with a working with the federal government, which I think we all agree is a real mess right now. I think we have to regulate it. Oh, they're asking to speak if possible.
Just like that.
Please.
Come on in. All right, you should be in.
Oh,
Hello.
hi. Thank you so much. So nice to meet you. My name is Benita. I'm in the district.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you too. My question, I saw something last week that was really disturbing to me,
Mhm.
and it was actually shared by someone who is within that realm of being close to people who are creating AI systems and all of the things that you had just spoke about. And Sam Altman, who is one of the fathers of AI, came out and spoke on a panel. And this is a real panel. You can find it on YouTube
Mhm.
and listen to what he said. And his exact words were, AI will very likely destroy the world, but great companies will be built from it.
God.
And
Ugh.
the fact that and everyone just sat there and just listened to him and just kind of accepted it. And I cannot believe that we have someone who has so much power over what happens to the majority of society, and we just are just like allowing it. And to your point, Congress is too old to understand the devastation of this and the impact that it's going to have on jobs. And here's the other thing, if we think back to what people always say about trickle down economics and how this is why corporations get all these tax breaks, well, why are they going to get tax breaks if you have no one, if you're going to lay off everybody?
Right. Yeah, again, it's like we're paying twice.
Right,
Right.
exactly. So it's just, it really shook me because again, it came from somebody who's like adjacent to that sphere of people.
Hmm.
And that's really scary. And the fact that like we're just accepting that we're just going to destroy the world so maybe 10 people can become mega trillionaires is appalling.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for coming off of mute and joining us. I really appreciate you sharing this. I actually had like a visceral reaction to hearing that story because I fully agree with you, and it is super appalling. I,
Yeah.
I think we again, I think it's like we're at an inflection point as a
Hmm.
country where we
Yeah.
all have to decide like what are we going to continue to accept. And I think
Right.
go ahead.
No, no, 100%. Like I just, again, it's just like I just think like we just act like all of this is normal speak. And these are not normal words to put together. And for someone to sit there and say it so plainly, as if you're asking someone like, can you pass me a bottle of water? Like it's just, it's not normal.
I fully agree, and I think that's what I was saying about the political whiplash that we're all experiencing is pretty much every day we are presented with a new issue that I never
Yeah,
thought I just like never envisioned that this would be our future, right? I think we're so far away from the idea of the American dream that we have to again decide like what is our future. And
right,
to your point, I don't want it to be, where 10 people own all of the wealth in our country and our world. And you've got Elon Musk becoming a trillionaire while we're worried about our healthcare and our housing and education, right? Like that's not the future I want for us or for this country.
right. Yeah. And, these data centers, there's one potentially opening up in Vineland, New Jersey. And, we're already, we're having this great impact. And I know, Governor Sherrill is going to be apparently trying to limit our electrical bills. But if we don't get ahead of this, it's just going to snowball into what Meta has already done. And in terms of, social media, it's going to become this massive snowball of issues that then just hurts like the younger generation.
Yeah.
And what are we going to end up doing? I'm not like 100% against technology or anything like that, because there's uses for things. And if we go to like a 4-day work week, a lot of people are talking about that, and there'll be more experiences. But the idea of the fact that there are these AI professionals who I'm a big podcast person,
Yeah.
and I made a TikTok video about two podcasts that I think everyone should listen to. It was on Diary of a CEO. One was in November, and one was in December, where he had two people who are at the heart of AI, and they all said the government needs to get involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because they said this is really dangerous. And if I don't say something, and what's making them say something is them thinking about their own children.
Well, and I think that's the honest truth. Like I don't have kids, but I think of my godson, right? He's
Yeah.
about to turn 3, and I have a lot of conversations with his mom where I'm like, do you even want to give him an iPad? Like, do you want to introduce him to technology? Or, I almost feel like the goal is to hide kids from technology at this point because there's so little regulation to keep them safe
Right.
that, I think it requires like an overcompensation of parents at this point,
Yeah.
to make sure that they're going to be okay. So,
Yeah. It's really, really intense. So I just wanted to come on and bring that to your attention. If you wanted to look that up, what Sam
yeah.
Altman said himself, it's just really was really appalling. And then, and again, this whole thing with Trump is just insanity overall. But it's really concerning, and I just worry in general about the country in terms of data centers and what's going to happen to everyone's future. And also these AI specialists are talking about this, universal income that people are going to get. Well, who's going to judge how much income I deserve based on my lifestyle?
Right.
And
And also, I mean, I haven't heard about the universal income piece of it, but
yeah,
I don't believe that. Like,
right. Like I'm like, well, how do you determine that? And so what, you're going to keep poor people poor and not, and you're going to take jobs away, and then you're telling me you're going to give me money not to work? Like, it just, none of it makes sense. And again, none of these people that are making these decisions come from a governmental level.
right.
Yeah. So I would suggest that, listen to a Diary of a CEO. If you look at the list, you'll see there's two podcasts about AI
Yeah, I
from
absolutely
November,
will.
December. Yeah. So thank you so much. And I appreciate you doing this. I really enjoyed listening to it.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, that's important stuff, and it's a big problem that we've continued to worship companies. The bigger and bigger you are, the more worship there is. And I like a small business. Let's grow some small businesses. Let's have a future where our kids can create a small business and grow their own, as opposed to just you know pick which mega corporation they want to uh, sign their life away to.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that just to double down on that, we have to get back to having like lively communities again, right? Like, yes, we need to support small businesses and we need to make sure that our kids go outside and like people touch grass and we organize together, right? I think again back to some of these questions, but we're so isolated as humans, as Americans, right? And I think that that has led to some of the anger and the divisiveness that we're seeing. So I think we have to lean into doing the opposite, which I feel like we're doing here. So I'm grateful to you, Larry, and New Jersey People Are People for creating the space.
Hey, just getting you guys out there, and I genuinely believe if voters get to know the candidates, we're gonna pick a better candidate. We're not just gonna pick the biggest budget candidate. We're gonna pick the one that represents us the best. Um,
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I'm not the one with the most money. So if that was impressive to you, it's not me. Um,
let's see. I've got some mailers here. I've got well, let's see. I'm mostly off camera, but I've got a Malinowski and a Grazel in front of me here. Um, but that's not where it's going to be won. I think that yes, sure, send the mailer also, do the ad spend also, but don't do the ad spend and then don't even create a profile on TikTok for your voters there that are interested in your campaign. Do you not need them? Maybe some of these campaigns feel like I've got enough voters. I just have to pelt them with my message enough times. Um, we've got
yeah,
one.
we're not taking anybody for granted, right? Like I really appreciate everyone's time. And we're doing our absolute best to meet people where they're at, right? We're pretty much doing some kind of event or activity every day, and we're doing phone banking and saying to people like, come to our events. You know, they're free. We want to meet you. I want to answer your questions and do the grassroots work that we all deserve from our representatives.
I like it. I see one here from Nunya in the chat. I think I know your last name, Nunya. Um, do you have any plans to fight against the isolation as a congressperson? I like that question, and I'll just mention, especially because I see in the viewers here at least one of my buddies from the Visibility Brigade. I'll say if you are feeling isolated, one thing you can do is look around for the local group, whether that's the Visibility Brigade that are springing up all across the country, or any other group that's just fixing things or doing good or volunteering. But if you're feeling isolated, the best thing to do is connect with some other people that are feeling that way too.
Yeah, I mean, fully agree with that. And I think as a congressperson, what I can do, and I actually saw that Mayor Zoran Mamdani and his office did this. They just created an office of community engagement so that they're kind of continuing their grassroots work and answering the direct questions from voters. So I think that's one important thing to do. I think investing in nonprofits and kind of highlighting the work that some of these community organizations are doing to bring people together. And then I don't know how I would fit this into a policy, but maybe it's just a practice. I'm a big foodie. I'm a huge proponent or person that like likes to sit down and have meals with people, and I think that's how we grow community together. So I'm sure that I can host like community dinners, right? Less of a policy and more of a practice as a human being.
Yes, please. We're in. We're in for community dinner. um, Anna, that's all the questions that we had prepared for you. You spent a whole bunch of time with us, and I know there's a hundred other, or maybe 1,000 other demands on your time running with the short timeline. Is there anything that you want to leave us with that I'll pass back over to you before I thank you one last time?
Yeah, I would just say, if what I said resonates with you, which I really hope it did, then please stay involved, right? Go to we can link my TikTok, but I'm on TikTok. I'm on all the social media. But check out our website. It's annaleewilliams.com. And then we are having events all over the district. We have one in Bloomfield on Wednesday, and we have one in Dover. We have one in Boonton coming up as well. So lots of things coming up. And I just want you to know that you deserve a fair deal from your representatives. So I'm going to keep fighting for it. And, thank you all for being here and taking the time.
All right, so I brought you up one last time here so we could see your awesome site. And just again, Anna, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck out there, and really just want to genuinely thank you for the transparency. I think we're lucky to have candidates this transparent. So thank you for doing it.
Thank you. I appreciate you all, and I hope you have a good night. And we just got to keep staying in the ring. That's what I keep saying. Like, I know it's hard. I know it's exhausting, but we will outlive this moment. We will see it through. We just got to stay in it.
We're in it. We're in it. Thank you again, Anna. Thank you.